Okay, we're going to solve and at the same time justify our equations. So number one, since it's 3 times x equals 15, we'll divide both sides by 3, giving us x equals 5. Our justification for that is the division property of equality. Number 2, x minus 10 equals 2. Since it's subtracting 10, we're going to add 10 to both sides. That will give us x equals 12. The justification for that would be the addition property of equality. Number 3, since we are adding 1.1 to the x, the inverse of adding is subtracting, so we'll subtract 1.1 on both sides. That will leave negative 2.7 as the value of x. Our justification is the subtraction property of equality. Number 4. Now number 4 can be a little tricky because there's a negative sign in front of the x. That negative sign has nothing to do with the 6.3 though. The sign in front of the number stays with the number. So in order to get rid of the 6.3, which is positive, we'll need to subtract 6.3 from both sides. So that cancels. We're left though with negative x is equal to 4.4. The justification for that step is, of course, the subtraction property of equality. But we are not done with this problem because we weren't solving for negative x, we're solving for x. So we still need to get rid of that negative sign. So since that's technically a negative 1x, we'd divide both sides by negative 1, giving us x is equal to negative 4.4. And that is the division property of equality. Okay, number 5 has a fraction. Don't worry about the fraction though. We treat it as we do any other number. So first, we'll need to get rid of this positive 3. So to get rid of plus 3, you subtract 3 on both sides, leaving us 1/3 x equal to 12. We subtracted 3 on both sides, so that is the subtraction property of equality. Now to get rid of the 1/3, you have two choices. Since that's the coefficient of x, when a fraction is your coefficient, you can multiply by the reciprocal, which would be 3/1 on both sides. And that leaves us with x equal to 36, and that used the multiplication property of equality. However, you're also welcome to divide away the 1/3 x. So let me go down here, let me take this step, start there again. If I had 1/3 x equals 12, and rather than multiplying by the reciprocal, if I had chosen to divide by 1/3 on both sides, I would be left with x equals, now this is 12 divided by 1/3, but to divide by a fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal, which turns into 12 times 3/1, exactly what we did with the first method. Okay, number 6, 2/3 x minus 10 equals 2. First, we'll need to get rid of that subtracting 10. So the inverse of subtraction is to add 10 to both sides. So addition property of equality. And we would be left with 2/3 x equals 12. Here we are with another fraction coefficient. So you have the choice of dividing by 2/3 using the division property, or multiplying by the reciprocal, which is 3/2, and that's the multiplication property of equality. So x would be equal to, now this is 12 over 1 times 3 over 2 is 36 halves, or 18. Okay, I used the multiplication property of equality. Okay, number 7, our first one today with a variable on both sides. So usually we choose to eliminate the smaller of the two variables, meaning this is 8x, over here is only 1x, the lesser is 1x, so we eliminate positive 1x by subtracting 1x on both sides. So 8x minus 1x is 7x, still have minus 10, still have positive 11 on the right. And that was the subtraction property of equality. To get rid of the subtracting 10, we will add 10 on both sides, leaving us 7x equals 21. There we use the addition property of equality. And finally, to get rid of the times 7, we will divide both sides by 7, so x will equal 3. And that is your division property of equality. Number 8, 5p minus 2 equals 32. First thing to eliminate is the minus 2. Inverse of subtraction is addition, so add 2 to both sides, leaving 5p equal to 34. That was your addition property of equality. Now, please don't look at this and say, hey, I want to divide by 5, but 5 doesn't go into 34. We're grown-ups now. Everything goes into everything. So we divide both sides by 5. P is equal to, you can leave the fraction 34 over 5, or as a decimal, that is 6.8. That is your division property of equality. Number 9, we now bring in parentheses. The parentheses imply we must distribute first, so 10 times y and 10 times 5 gives us 10y plus 50 equals 10. That's your distributive property. Okay. Now we're looking at a plus 50. The opposite of plus 50 is to subtract 50 on both sides. So 10y equals negative 40. That's your subtraction property of equality. And last step, to get rid of the multiplication by 10, we need to divide both sides by 10. So y equals negative 4. And of course, that is the division property of equality. Last one of these, we're back to having x's variables on both sides. We have positive 3x and negative 3x. The smaller value then is the negative 3x. To get rid of negative 3x, we would add it to both sides. Add 3x on the left and the right. Cancels from the right. On the left side, we have 6x plus 9 equals 44. That is your addition property of equality. To get rid of the positive 9, you would subtract 9 on both sides, leaving you 6x equal to 35, using the subtraction property of equality. And lastly, to get rid of multiplication by 6, we divide both sides by 6. And again, we don't worry about the elementary school 6 doesn't go into 35 fear. Every number goes into every other number. So 35 divided by 6 can be written as 35 sixth. Please do not change this to a decimal, because in decimal form, it would be a repeating decimal, and we don't use those. We keep those all rational numbers. We keep in fraction form unless the decimal is terminating. We use there the division property of equality. Okay, number 11 has 4 parts to it, but the directions say we are to check whether or not the given value is the solution to the equation. So for 11a, we are given that a is equal to -3. We will substitute -3 into the equation everywhere we see the variable a, and just simplify both sides of the equation until we're left with either two numbers that are equal, indicating it's a solution, or two different numbers indicating it is not a solution. So here on the left-hand side of the equation, 4 times -3 is -12. And -12 plus 3 is -9, which matches the right-hand side. So yes, a equals -3 is a solution. Number 11b, we are going to substitute 4/3 into the equation everywhere that we see an x. So 3/4 times 4/3 plus 1/2 equals 3/2. 3/4 times 4/3, to multiply fractions, you multiply numerators and multiply denominators, so that becomes 12 over 12. So 1 plus 1/2 equals 3/2. To add 1 plus 1/2, we need common denominators, which would be 2 in this case. So 1 is 2 over 2. So 2/2 plus 1/2 is equal to 3/2. So the left and right sides match. And once again, our given value, 4/3, is a solution. Part C, we're going to substitute the value of 2 everywhere in the equation that we see a y. So 2.5 times 2 is 5. And then 5 minus 10 is -5. Since -5 does not equal -1/2, the value, the number 2, is not a solution. And the last one for the day, we are going to substitute -5 everywhere we see an h in the equation. So 2 times the quantity 5 minus 2 times -5 equals 20 minus 2 times the quantity -5 minus 1. So working from the inside out in these parentheses, 2 times -5 is -10. So 2 times 5 minus -10 equals 20 minus 2 times -5 minus 1 is -6. 5 minus -10, the two negatives become addition, so we have 2 times 5 plus 10, which is 15, equals, now over here, 20. I'm going to treat this negative as the sign with the 2. This is -2 times -6, giving me positive 12. So on the left-hand side, 2 times 15 is 30. On the right-hand side, 20 plus 12 is 32. Since 30 does not equal 32, -5 is not a solution. And that'll do it for the day.